Rain poured relentlessly that gray Portland morning, as if the sky itself was mourning with me. I stood motionless, gripping my black umbrella that trembled in the wind, watching my mother's coffin slowly disappear into the wet earth. Everyone around me was crying. Everyone, except my father. He wasn't there to shed a single tear. Instead, he was thousands of miles away in Hawaii, grinning beside his latest mistress, their champagne glasses sparkling as they toasted what seemed like a celebration of my mother's death. When the final clump of dirt hit the wooden lid, I tried to whisper goodbye through clenched lips. That night, thunder rolled across Portland as I sat alone in my apartment, staring at faded photographs of her. Then my phone buzzed. "I'm still alive. Come to the cemetery now." The message came from my mother's phone number. My throat constricted and ice shot through my veins. With shaking hands, I grabbed my keys and ran to my car, pulse hammering violently. I couldn't tell if I was heading toward a miracle or straight into madness. I'm Grace Miller, and until a week ago, I believed my world was normal. I lived in a small apartment overlooking the Willamette River, worked as a freelance designer, and had a mother who called every Sunday just to remind me to eat breakfast. I used to roll my eyes at her texts. "Take your vitamins, sweetheart. Don't skip dinner again." I never thought I'd desperately wish to read them one more time. The morning she died started like any other. I was finishing a project when an unknown number flashed on my phone screen. I almost let it ring, but some strange instinct compelled me to answer. "Is this Grace Miller?" The caller's voice trembled. "I'm calling from Portland General Hospital. I'm so sorry. Your mother passed away this morning. Cardiac arrest." I went numb. The room spun. Everything lost color. "No," I whispered, hands shaking. "You're wrong. My mother was fine. She was going painting today." "I'm sorry," the nurse gently repeated. Her words echoed long after the line went dead. When I called my father, his voice was nothing but cold detachment. "Yes," he said without emotion. "Evelyn is gone." The doctor said it happened quickly. I could barely speak, equal parts angry and disbelieving. "That's all you can say?" He sighed. "Grace, she's dead. Cry if you need to, but don't make a scene. I'll handle the paperwork." Then the line went dead. In that moment, grief gave way to rage. Something deep inside whispered that my father wasn't grieving at all. He was relieved, and that thought chilled me to the bone. 3 days passed, and the rain continued. It seemed even Portland itself refused to forget her. The cemetery air was thick with damp earth and the faint scent of lilies. People in black huddled under umbrellas, whispering condolences that never seemed to reach my ears. My eyes stayed fixed on the coffin with golden letters spelling my mother's name. Evelyn Grace Miller. My throat ached. "You don't deserve this," I breathed. Whispers spread through the funeral crowd. "Where's Richard?" Her husband didn't come. Shameful. I clenched my fists until they hurt. The night before, my father had sent a text, busy with overseas business. Handle the funeral arrangements. No apology. No remorse. Just business. As the priest began speaking, my legs trembled. My cousin's daughter, little Ava, tugged my sleeve. "Aunt Grace," she whispered. "If Grandma's in heaven, can she see us?" I knelt beside her, tears choking my voice. "Yes, sweetheart, she can see us. She's watching right now." A sudden gust blew away my umbrella as the coffin sank into the earth. The priest's words mingled with the steady rainfall. Each drop hit the ground like a heartbeat that would never answer mine again. When everyone else left, I remained alone, kneeling in mud before the grave. "Mom," I whispered, "if there's any justice in this world, he'll pay for what he's done." "I promise." Lightning split the sky, creating a sharp white streak against the black clouds. I took it as an omen. That night, soaked and hollow, I drove home. I showered, put on one of Mother's sweaters, then sat in darkness scrolling through my father's social media. Then I saw his latest post. He was smiling on a sun-drenched beach, arm around a young woman with perfect hair. The caption read, "New beginnings." My chest tightened, and my hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. While I stood under gray skies burying my mother, my father was grinning in warm sunshine beside another woman. Something inside me shattered, and in its place, a darker determination began to rise. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment felt like whispers from beyond. The storm battered my windows, and no matter how hard I tried, I kept seeing my mother's motionless face inside that coffin. Too peaceful, unnaturally still. I tried distracting myself by looking at old photos. Mom painting in the backyard, laughing with dirt-stained hands, teaching me to bake apple pie, holding me after my first heartbreak. Each memory cut deeper than the last. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another condolence message. But when I saw the sender's name, I froze. Mom, her phone number, the one I couldn't bring myself to delete. My face went pale as I opened the message. I'm still alive. Come to the cemetery now. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my mind scrambling for logic. Maybe a wrong number, some sick joke. But my body had already made its choice. I threw on a coat, grabbed my keys, and rushed into the storm. The rain fell harder, fierce, and relentless. My windshield wipers struggled against the torrent as I sped toward the cemetery, headlights cutting through puddles. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but my mother's words echoed in my head. Trust your heart, Grace, even when your mind is afraid. When I reached the gates, the place was shrouded in fog. Weak lights flickered, casting long shadows across headstones. I parked, stepped into the wind, and called out, my voice trembling. Only rain answered until I noticed movement by the willow trees. A small figure hunched in a soaked coat. Mom, I whispered again, raising my shaking flashlight. The beam illuminated her face, pale, fragile, but unmistakably alive. Her hazel eyes glistened with tears. Grace, she said softly. My mind fractured into chaos. The flashlight slipped from my hands, landing softly in the mud. I staggered forward, heart pounding in my ears, unable to believe what I was seeing. Mom, how are you alive? She reached for me, hands ice-cold but solid. It's me, sweetheart, she whispered, voice trembling. But you absolutely cannot tell anyone I'm alive. Rain poured harder, blurring everything until life and death seemed to merge. I couldn't stop staring. Her face was pale, almost translucent, hair matted to her skin. But her eyes, those familiar hazel eyes, still shone with unmistakable life. Mom, I choked out. Everyone saw you. I saw you. You were gone. She pulled me into her arms, shaking. In that moment, everything disappeared. The storm, the graves, the fear. All that existed was her weak heartbeat mixing with mine. Then she leaned close. Grace, we can't stay here. Someone might see us. We hurried through the rain to a small silver sedan hidden under trees. I climbed inside, body trembling. Mom, what's happening? She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. Finally, she whispered, Your father, Richard. He tried to kill me. I gasped. What? Tears spilled down her cheeks. He's not the man you think he is. For months, he kept pressuring me to sign over my shares, the art studio, everything in my name. When I refused, he said I would disappear. The words hit like lightning. This was impossible. I stammered, He's your husband, my father. Her voice shook. He's a businessman, Grace. He only sees people as assets or obstacles, and I was no longer valuable to him. Then she told me about the night she died. She'd been having chest pains for days from unbearable stress. She collapsed while painting. Their housekeeper, panicking, called an ambulance. At the hospital, my father arrived not with worry, but with a stack of papers. He wanted her to sign them before she became too weak to hold a pen. When she refused, he left without another word. But Mom wasn't alone. A former student of hers, Martha, happened to be a nurse there. Weeks earlier, Martha had noticed bruises on Mother's arms and sensed something was wrong. She helped me, my mother whispered. Martha altered the medical records, made everyone think my heart had stopped. The body people saw wasn't mine. It was a mannequin. I covered my mouth. You faked your death. Tears streamed down her face. It was the only way to survive, Grace. I thought you'd be safe when I disappeared, but when I saw what he posted about new beginnings, I knew he wouldn't stop. He'll take everything, including you. My heart pounded louder than the storm. Then we stop him first. Her eyes widened. No, Grace. You don't understand what he's capable of." "I do," I said quietly. "That's why we have to bring him down." For a moment, she looked at me like she was seeing someone completely new, not her daughter, but an equal ready to fight. Then she nodded slowly. "All right, but we have to be careful. No mistakes." The storm began to ease, rain softening to drips from tree branches. That's when I realized my mother hadn't died in that hospital. She'd been reborn, and I was about to follow suit. As morning broke, the city became sharper, colder, as if it knew what I was carrying. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face at the hospital. Calm, cold, as if Mother's death was just another business transaction. My mother was hiding in a safe house in Portland's suburbs. Martha visited occasionally. I'd sworn not to reveal this to anyone. Not my best friend, not the police. Not yet. But patience was never my strength. At 8 a.m., my father called. His tone was light, almost cheerful. "Dear Grace, today we'll finalize your mother's estate proceedings. I just need your signature on a few documents." I gripped my hand until my nails dug into my palm. "Documents? Just routine paperwork," he said smoothly. "Nothing to worry about." I agreed to visit the mansion that evening, then texted Mom. "He's making his move," she replied immediately. "Let him think he's winning." That evening, the house I grew up in suddenly felt alien, like a stranger's home wearing the skin of my childhood. The mansion gleamed with polished floors and crystal chandeliers, but the atmosphere felt suffocating. He welcomed me with a politician's professional smile. "Grace, you look tired. Too many sleepless nights over old things." "Over dead things," I replied, voice sharp. "Or things that were supposed to die." He hesitated, eyes focusing intently for a moment. "Be careful with your words," he warned. We sat in his office. He pushed a thick file folder across the desk. "These are transfer forms for your mother's assets. Since you're the sole heir, I need your signature to confirm ownership so we can proceed." I flipped through the documents, heart racing. My mother's handwriting covered the pages. A perfect forgery. "You forged her signature," I said, slowly looking up. He smiled faintly. "You think I need to forge anything? Your mother agreed to this before she died." I stood up. "Funny, I remember her swearing she'd rather burn everything than let you have it." His expression immediately turned serious. "Sit down. I won't sign." "Grace," he said softly, leaning forward, "I know you're grieving, but don't make me do what's necessary." That cold, authoritative voice had haunted my mother for years. My hands shook. Not from fear, but from rage. "You killed her once already," I told him. He stiffened. "What did you just say?" The chair scraped against the wall as he stood. "You won't get away with it," I said, looking straight into his eyes. A flicker of worry crossed his face. He grabbed the documents, breathing heavily, then shouted, "Get out." I turned toward the door, but in the office mirror, I caught the gleam of a small safe behind his desk, its keypad partially hidden by a family photo. I smiled slightly. "Yes, Father. I'll go." That night, I couldn't sleep. After midnight, I let myself into his office using an old spare key I'd kept from childhood. The safe opened on the third try. Of course, his password was my mother's birthday. Inside were bank records, wire transfers to offshore accounts, forged contracts, and a single USB drive. I copied everything to my hard drive and left as silently as I'd arrived. When I reached my car, my hands were shaking violently. I texted Mom. "Got it." Her response appeared almost instantly. "But be careful, Grace. He'll know soon." Just as I sent the message, another arrived from an unknown number. "Grace, you think I wouldn't notice? It was him, my father. The street outside was deserted except for rain, shimmering streetlights, and my trembling reflection in the windshield." My chest tightened. He knew. Then the phone rang, his voice coming through the speaker, calm and measured. "Too calm. You were always smart," he said, "but you seem to forget who taught you how to lie." I tried to keep my voice steady. "You don't scare me." He chuckled softly. "Don't I? Come home, Grace. We'll talk. Otherwise, I'll make you regret stealing from me." "Stealing?" I shot back. "You mean evidence?" Silence. Long, deliberate, suffocating. Then, in a low voice, If you're smart, you'll destroy it. Otherwise, we might have to hold another funeral." The line went dead. For a moment, I sat motionless, staring at my pale reflection in the windshield. Then I heard my mother's words echoing in my head. "He'll come for everything, including you. But not this time." I drove straight to the safe house. Mom opened the door, still in her bathrobe, eyes wide. "Grace, what happened?" "He knows," I said, throwing the USB on the table. "We have to act now. These files, the offshore accounts, forged contracts, fake transfers, it's all there, enough to destroy him." She stared at the USB, then at me. "If we go to the police, he'll find us before they act." I took a shaky breath. "Then we make him destroy himself." Over the next 48 hours, with Martha's help, we anonymously sent evidence to the FBI and financial agencies. Mom contacted an old friend, Charlotte Wells, a lawyer who began drafting an official statement for when the truth emerged. But the storm didn't wait. It came sooner than expected. 2 nights later, headlights pierced the darkness outside the safe house. Mom peered through the curtains and gasped. "It's him," she whispered. Pounding on the door shook the frame. "Grace." His voice boomed through the wooden door. "Open up. End this nonsense." Mom's fingers trembled as she gripped my hand. "Don't. He's dangerous." But I was tired of fear. I pulled the door open. He stood in the rain, soaked head to toe, eyes blazing with fury, his tailored suit clinging like a disguise about to tear apart. "Where is she?" he demanded. I stepped into the doorway. "Who, Father? The wife you buried? The woman you tried to erase?" He clenched his jaw. "You have no idea what she's done. She's destroyed me." "She loved you," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself." He shoved me aside, striding in while shouting her name into the house. "Evelyn." Mom appeared at the end of the hallway, weak, pale, but unwavering. "I'm right here." He froze. In that moment, even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. His face went ashen. No, this can't be happening. "You're dead." Her voice was calm, sharp as glass. "You tried to kill me." He laughed brokenly, shaking with rage. "You think you can take what belongs to me? My company? My legacy? You're nothing without me." I stepped between them. "That's where you're wrong." From the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. His eyes darted toward the window, panic clear on his face. "What have you done?" Mom didn't flinch. "Exactly what you taught us. Clean house. Only this time, you left too late." Red and blue lights flooded the house. The front door burst open, and agents rushed in, weapons raised. "Richard Miller," one shouted. "You're under arrest for financial fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder." He turned to me, desperation overtaking arrogance. "Grace, tell them they're wrong. Tell them—" I looked straight into his eyes and shook my head. "You buried the wrong person, Father." He lunged forward, screaming incoherently, but the agents seized him, twisting his arms behind his back. Rain outside grew fiercer, drowning out everything except his rage. As they dragged him out, he glanced at Mom one last time. "You'll regret this," he hissed. She watched him leave, voice soft as a whisper. "No, Richard. You already did." When the door closed, the house fell silent, except for gentle rain from the eaves. I realized the trembling in my hands was no longer from fear. It was relief. Mom collapsed into my arms, sobbing quietly on my shoulder. "It's over," she whispered. I held her tight, feeling her pulse beneath her skin, the heart that was never supposed to beat again. "No," I said softly. "It's just beginning." Outside, the first light of dawn stretched across the wet ground, washing away the night. For the first time since the funeral, the rain finally stopped. The following weeks blurred in a storm of news coverage, court filings, and headlines. Real estate mogul Richard Miller arrested for fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. Every channel showed his photo. Once the charming face of success, now stamped with criminal investigation tags. Mom and I watched from a quiet hotel room far from Portland, avoiding the noise. Mom rarely spoke, hands clutching undrunk tea. One morning, she finally said, "When I married your father, I thought he was someone who built things. I never realized he was the type who destroyed them." I reached across the table and took her hand. He won't destroy us again. 3 months later, the trial began. The courtroom packed with reporters, lawyers, and shareholders who once toasted him, now whispering in shadows. My father sat at the defense table, suit wrinkled, hair disheveled, his old confidence vanished. He never looked at us once. When my mother took the witness stand, the entire room fell silent. She spoke clearly, every word carefully measured, voice calm but sharp. "I faked my death," she said. "Not for revenge, but for survival." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Pens scratched across notepads. Cameras clicked rapidly. She told everything. The threats, the forged papers, the night he told her she'd be worth more dead than alive. She never cried once. She didn't need to. The truth was heavier than tears. When my turn came, I faced the jury, then looked straight at him, the man I once thought invincible. "My father taught me to be brave," I said quietly. But I don't think he expected me to use that courage against him. Finally, his eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw fear, not of handcuffs, but of losing control of the story he'd written for all of us. Our lawyer, Charlotte Wells, presented the evidence: bank transfers, forged contracts, recordings between him and my deceased grandparents. Piece by piece, his empire crumbled, crushed under the weight of his own lies. When the jury delivered their verdict, the entire room seemed to hold its breath, guilty on all counts. He closed his eyes as those words rang out, shoulders slumping. No objections, no pleas, just silence. The judge's voice rang steady and cold. "Richard Miller, you are sentenced to 30 years in federal prison." The gavel's bang echoed through the courtroom like final thunder after a long storm. Mom exhaled shakily, as if she'd been holding her breath for decades. I reached for her hand, and she squeezed mine tightly, tears glistening but refusing to fall. As guards led him away in handcuffs, he looked back once. In that fleeting moment, I glimpsed the shadow of the father I once loved, then he was gone. Outside the courthouse, camera flashes erupted. Reporters shouted over each other. "Miller, Miss Miller, how does it feel to bring down one of Portland's most powerful men?" Mom stopped, exhaustion clear on her face. A tired smile crossed her lips. "I don't feel like this was a victory," she said. "It feels like freedom." The next morning, newspapers called her the woman who came back from the dead. But to me, she wasn't a ghost. She was proof that truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find its way back to light. Months passed, and every day I woke still hearing the phantom echo of that gavel. The nightmare was over, but its shadows lingered. Mom and I moved to the Oregon coast, far from Portland's skyscrapers and stress. She bought a small, weathered house near the cliffs, a place with cracked white paint and a garden that bloomed like forgiveness. Her days filled with color again. She taught local children to paint, filling canvases with wildflowers and letting sea breezes dry her tears. One afternoon, I found her by the shore, brush suspended in air. "What are you painting?" I asked. The corner of her mouth curved into a gentle smile. "Freedom." I opened a small design studio nearby called Evelyn and Grace Designs. It wasn't just a business, it was a promise. We would create something real, something that couldn't be bought, sold, or betrayed. Life gradually became peaceful, with quiet mornings, fresh sea air, and the tranquility they finally felt. But sometimes the past still whispered. Reporters wrote letters. Investors offered money to buy her story. She always refused. "I don't need to relive that anymore," she'd often say. "I just need to live." On a golden afternoon, as the sun set behind waves, we sat together on the porch, holding warm teacups, surrounded by the scent of salt and damp earth. I looked at her. The question that had haunted me for months finally surfacing. "Mom," I said quietly, "I never asked who sent that message the night you returned. The one that brought me to the cemetery." She turned toward the horizon, eyes catching the last rays of light. "I didn't do that," she said softly. I frowned. "What do you mean? The message came from your phone number." Mom shook her head. "My phone was dead, Grace. Martha had taken it that night. I didn't have it for hours." We both fell silent. Only the steady sound of waves against rocks broke the quiet. A cold sensation crept through me, not from fear, but from something deeper, almost sacred. Maybe fate itself had sent that message, refusing to let a lie exist without being challenged. Mom reached across the small table and took my hand. "Whatever it was," she said softly, "it saved us." I smiled despite my aching throat. "No, Mom, you saved us." In the fading light, I didn't see her as the woman who had suffered or survived, but as someone completely new, a woman reborn. Later, as I drove home under a sky ablaze with deep orange, the same color as the daisies she loved, I rolled down the windows and let the sea breeze fill the car. For the first time in years, I no longer felt any ghosts following me. The truth had set us free. We had lost everything: money, reputation, even family. But from the ashes, we found something more precious: peace. As the road curved away from the sea, I whispered into the wind, "Sleep well, Mom." And in the silence of waves and tire hums, I swear I heard her voice one more time, gentle, steady, alive. "Sleep well, sweetheart." The storm was over. Finally, we were home.
And karma wins again. If you enjoy this, smash like, subscribe, and share this video. Your supports help the channel grow. Catch you in the next story.